Commission and non-action new business. And the highlight of the program for today is the Youth Marine Foundation. Commissioner Keller and I have been looking at workforce development training program, and this, I think, is one of the exciting elements of it. And we have two individuals here, Monique Strudowski and Mr. Tom Rogers. So welcome, and look forward to the presentation, and always look forward to saying hello and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I need a booster seat. I try to wear my tall shoes, Mr. Tom. So yes, I'm Monique Valenzuela, the Executive Director and CEO of the Youth Marine Foundation. And next to my left, for those of you that can't see at home, is Mr. Tom Rogers. Tom Rogers serves as the president of our nonprofit, but is also one of the co-founders. So as you see a lot of the initiatives, he kind of has been here in the thick of it and really has some great foresight. So our workforce development presentation today is going to be a little bit unique. The first thing that's going to be unique is we start workforce development with 13-year-olds in braces, teaching them how to, go to middle school, but also teaching them that even though they can't get a driver's license yet, they can run a 78-foot wooden vessel. So thank you for letting us talk to you about who we are. And for the edification of some of our viewers and our newer commissioners, I'm going to talk a little bit about where we came from, why we're still relevant, and then what we're going to do for our future, which I think you're going to be very excited about. Next slide. So we do, let's see, I don't have a clicker, right? Next. Thank you. So we are an IRS recognized 501c3 nonprofit. In that vein, we really are an educational entity, and we really hope to leverage and collaborate with our community partners. We, as a nonprofit, do not actually perform programs. Our biggest and sole purpose is to provide access to the waterway and a place where youth can touch the sound. We know how expensive waterfront property is and how expensive waterfront capital investments are, so we focus on meeting our mission, next slide, through the operation of the Tacoma Youth Marine Center. And we say thank you to all of you commissioners, staff, and the Port of Tacoma. We're on a 2-acre parcel on the east side of the Foss Waterway. And on the east side of the Foss Waterway, we maintain all the docks, all the tenant improvements, as you are our landlord. But we put hundreds of thousands of dollars into that property. And Eric, you got to see it at the World Trade Center Global Awards, and some of our commissioners as well. We keep a very wonderful property, mostly because a lot of our kids don't have access to the water, especially if they come from non-water, non-boating families. They grew up looking at it. They have no idea that they can not only enjoy it recreationally, but can build a lifetime career on and near the water. Next slide. Our Youth Marine Center campus, actually, and our foundation have a huge legacy in Tacoma. Actually 99 years. So we've gone through the advent of sliced bread, pocket cameras, calculators, the internet, cable TV, MTV, and we're still around. But presently, we're still serving youth. However, you all know what the job force needs. And we all also know that there are a lot of underrepresented youth. We have strong and strategic ways that we're going to get those kids on the water. Next slide. There are so many great locations. This historic location is so important to me because if you look at the picture in 1947, that's the building we're in now. And in the 30s and 40s, the building that we're in now launched boats all over the world. And when you look at the Port of Tacoma and the different maritime diversity, in that picture, we have a fishing boat that we just built and are launching. There's a military boat right above it. And then going by is one of the Foss tugs, representing the many people that have workboat experience on the waterfront. To the right is our current location. No, we don't launch boats, but we do launch kids and we launch teenagers. And to me, that's sometimes even more important. But a huge historic location, we preserve the working waterfront so that youth can have access and really launch their careers. Next slide. In addition to our historic location, we have a really historic legacy. You see a picture of the USS Constitution on her only trip here in Tacoma, and that was in 1933. And on the bow of the USS Constitution, you see 30 to 40 Sea Scouts. That's the youth that are now all of you leaders in the community, but on the USS Constitution that actually visited. Our Sea Scout unit, the Charles N. Curtis, has been operating for 99 continuous years. That means every year, every October for 99 years, we've registered a minimum of 15 kids 18 and under and a minimum of 5 adult volunteers. Think about that longevity. That means we're still relative even when competing with all the cool computer names. But our history also features huge maritime giants like Henry Foss. You'll see in the picture that Mr. Foss actually was a national commodore for Sea Scouts. He used his family's legacy and his mom Taya's legacy of going all around the 50 states saying we need to have access to the water. We need to have Sea Scouts. And at one time, Tacoma was a home to the most Sea Scout units in the entire nation. Mr. Foss also did a huge drum up job of telling industry peers of his, we also need to invest in the youth. It wasn't unusual, Tom, was it, that sometimes the kids would tie up their boats to one of their company yachts and they'd pull them up to the San Juans, cut the ties, and the kids would go off sailing. I don't want you to do that today, but please. Eric's looking at me going, no, no, no.
It was a barge.
It was a barge. I was trying to make it PG-13, Mr. Tom, but you're right. No. But if you think of that, we've come a long way from garbage barges, but we're still relevant. So what do we do today? Next slide. What we do today is we still give generations of success. You look at a youth in the 70s holding a flagship trophy as a quartermaster, meaning he spent 4 to 5 years working at advancements and ranks. While we put a ton of people and hundreds of kids in the maritime industry, we also launched leaders. The teenager with the glasses you see is Paul Miller, Tacoma City Councilman, Deputy Mayor, now COO of the America's History Made Car Museum. Many of our alumni have joined the ranks of elected officials, have gone on to be leaders. In addition to launching workforce development for maritime, we teach youth how to have community engagement and give back. One of our great success stories. Next slide. And we still now have the Tacoma Sea Scouts as our strongest and most robust partner. In fact, the kids that you're seeing are coming to stinky engine rooms and getting their fingers dirty and having fun. That's how we get them down there. And then when they decide, I want to be a quartermaster, equivalent to an Eagle Scout, it is a 4 to 5 year task at hand. Heck, some employees don't even stick around that long. And we still get the kids out there. Commissioner McCarthy, we get your grandson up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday, believe it or not. He does it smiling, right?
I didn't say that.
He does. But we still have the most Sea Scouts in the whole nation come from our waters right here in Tacoma. Next slide. And they all are very anxious and hope to come and be recognized by you again. This was in 2019, the last time we had a pre-COVID class of Sea Scouts. And we have 8 Sea Scouts out of 25 in the nation coming from Tacoma. And I'm thankful to all of you commissioners for taking the time with these young kids. The 3 young gentlemen, the only 3 that could make it are, we had 3 females also in that class. One of the gentlemen you'll see is currently on the Silicon Ferries. So under 21 years old, he has a job, not entry level, above entry level, working on the Silicon Ferries because of his time on the water. The middle gentleman is on the East Coast. He's currently in college. And the gentleman all the way on the left, I think it's my left, is currently in Mexico, building housing and working with youth down there. So all of these kids were right here in these chambers a couple years ago and are already making change in their community and working in our current maritime system. Next slide.
Monique,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to interrupt you for 1 second.
Please.
I do have former Commissioner Petrich's phone number, and I'm going to call her up and make certain she signs that proclamation.
You got it. Knowing her, she was probably at a sister city. So thank you, Mr. Don. Let me write that down. No, I'm kidding. Well, the Sea Scouts make up the most robust program that we have identified over the years, and actually our community has demanded over the years, and we responded by saying there are additional ways that we have to get youth into these programs that are hands-on. Our Sea Scout program, being the most successful, does meet nights and weekends. Many working families and single parent families, nights and weekends are a luxury. And so we've really identified other ways and access through our awareness. First of all, just letting kids be aware that there's opportunity on the water. Through our marine science. I mean, I know the Port of Tacoma has a huge passion with making sure we have healthy bays and we monitor our water quality. We have 14-year-olds that do that for you. Access, which is huge. Middle schoolers at 13 and 14-year-olds have the first taste of what it's like being on the water and skilled trades. Next slide. So we start with the awareness. This last summer, we took a cohort of non-voting youth and we partnered with not only the Seattle Goodwill Paid Internship Program and the Youth Maritime Accelerator Program in Seattle, we also had Centro de la Raza. And what we saw was most of the youth of color that came down had never even done a kayak and knew how to put on a PFD. What did we learn? We learned that we have to be aware of the diversity of youth. I mean, Tom had to go and buy 3X and 4X, life jackets. I have huge football players that are coming down. We had to really recognize and have teaching on the dockside before they got into the kayaks about 3 points of contact. And also, what are the boats that are coming through and what to be aware of? The biggest part was being in a kayak allowed them to actually touch the sounds, our core mission statement, and got them closer to the water than they've ever been. One kid's comment, man, next time my dad pours oil in the grass, I'm going to tell him about the duck I saw, blew my mind. They now have empathy and shared experience of why water health and water quality is important to them that they really wouldn't have sitting in their room playing, Xbox, to be honest with you. So awareness is the first thing. Not everyone's going to be an engineer right off the bat. Let's make them aware of the water around them. Next slide. Then when we talk about STEM marine science cruises, this is December 7th. It was cold, it was rainy, and we had 25 kids stuffed to the galley of the Charles and Curtis. It smelled like hot Cheetos and X. That's what happens when you have a bunch of teenagers. But as soon as Captain Tom stopped, they jumped into action. And so what you see is actual water quality testing. My hope is this December, I can bring back some high school students to show you what they've done. The last 5 years, we partnered with School of the Arts and Science and Math Institute. Mr. Tom and alumni of the Sea Scout apprenticeship from the 70s, 50s, and 60s take our youth out. And they actually do water quality testing and use a scientific method to study zooplankton, oxygenation, salination. They are actually getting on the water as their classroom. It's done during the school day, a protected time. And so if they have the ability to then come on the nights and weekends, they at least have exposure. They're on there. What you see in the bottom is actually a portable camera that the students lower. And we have a small computer screen that they can then look and see exactly what's below them. And they're so excited when they see the mussel beds coming back. They see the fish. One kid did identify, I see B-I-G. That's a big gulp cup. Oh my goodness. Right? But it made him aware. He said, now when I get my big gulp, I'm making sure it goes in the garbage because I'll always have that image. This is the kind of shared experience that our future marine biologists are going to have and marine environmental scientists.
It's an accredited course.
Pardon?
It's an accredited
And it
course.
is an accredited course for them in high school.
Grades.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just fun and games, and it's year-round. It's Washington State, so you're out there. Next slide. Access is important to us, and we know that a lot of the working families in Tacoma don't have the means to be involved with a yacht club or recreational boating, which does take a lot of cost. This last summer, we decided that we're going to launch Operation Middle School Diversity for Workforce. 13, 14-year-olds that may not see themselves in the workforce or may not know that if you are good at video game joystick, you can actually be a crane operator, guys. There's a hand-eye coordination. They had no idea. So we filled our property, that 2-acre campus that you help us support, with school buses. And we had 36 middle schoolers in quick 20-minute sessions on the campus, learning about walking safely on the dock without earphones in your ears, how to cross working railroad tracks, how to tie knots, how to look at navigation. This was access is going to be a huge focus of ours and one that we continue to grow. The best news I have to share is we've been working since that with the Tacoma Public Schools, and we've signed a contract to be the only authorized working boat that can take kids in every middle school and every high school, not only on our campus, but actually out on the water. We are officially endorsed because we operate commercially licensed vessels and because we maintain such an amazing campus to safety standards. Next slide. And then the last quadrant is the skill trades. We know that we need people on the water, but what about your mechanics? What about the people we hire to actually fix the boats? We had a flagship program with a student who was a high school student that came to me and said, Miss Monique, I'm a senior. I've been rebuilding cars since I was 13. I have no fingernails. I don't want to go to college. My mom's going to yell at me. Can I please just come intern as a mechanic? And I said, well, first of all, we've never done that, so we have to put some structure around it. Our head mechanic met with his high school counselor, and they devised how to give him high school credit for 4th and 5th period if he came to our campus. That meant he had to actually work. So he was a paid high school intern. Once he graduated in June, we hired him on staff right away. The kid not only had aptitude and desire and drive, but would come to us constantly wanting to do more than just change the impeller. I want to slap this engine together. I want to learn more about the systems. Nick is now starting his 2nd year of employment. In those 2 years, he has the upward mobility to now have his own place on his parents' property. He pays rent. How many cars has Nick bought between the time he's worked with us? At least 4, because he decided, I'm going to fix up cars, flip them. So he now has the ability to do that as well. But this is a kid that didn't necessarily have a baccalaureate pathway. He was really proud this last summer when Congressman Kilmer came and he showed him the engine that he put together from start to finish for a new vessel going in. By reclaiming and recycling these used boats, he's not only helping boats have a longer life, but he has a skill. I told him, if you ever leave me, I will not be happy. But if you need to, you'll be able to travel the world. Boat mechanics, diesel mechanics are definitely at a price. We launched him from our shop and are looking to grow that program. Next slide. The biggest thing I want to point out to the commissioners is, as a co-founder, Mr. Tom and his partners really did a bang-up job of doing one thing, making sure we had sustainable revenue. As most of you know, but some of the public might not know, our nonprofit operates 2 for-profit businesses, a boat repair business and a fuel dock. Just like the Goodwill model, when you go and purchase something at Goodwill, those proceeds help fund the programs. We're able to not only provide economic development and workforce development, but we then have the ability to really invest in our property, invest in those leasehold improvements, and be a very good tenant. Most of all, 14-year-olds don't have a lot of money in their pockets. We never want programs and our partners like Metro Parks, the Sea Scouts, or the schools to have to pay a premium price. By having 2 for-profit businesses, it really allows us to have access and affordable entry-level programs for our youth. I'm really proud of the businesses. We have over 10 employees, and we not only are providing a service, we also providing support to our first responders, like the Port of Tacoma, the police department, the fire boats, and the tribal police boats as well. So we're at a service to our community, and we've actually doubled our staff in the mechanic shop with a PPP loan, believe it or not. COVID's been a great time for us because a lot of people aren't able to buy new boats, so they're investing in their existing boats. So very, very proud about the sustainable revenue. Because of that, next slide, we've been able to identify some of the things that we're going to need for our future. So impacting next generations. We've been around for 99 years, but we need to be around for another 99. So we have 3 key points. Expanding our school day programs. Again, that is a way to access all youth. They can't always have a mom that can drop them off nights and weekends. We're going to register a new Sea Scout unit. In the middle of COVID, the demand for off-computer activities was so great. Mr. Tom actually registered an entire new unit. That was unheard of. While numbers to organizations were dropping, we have a whole new cohort of 13-year-olds that have now joined our ranks. It's amazing. And then, of course, meaningful collaboration. We also have a board of directors that are multifaceted, from elected officials to industry experts to retired instructors. And thank you, Commissioner Keller, for serving on our board. We are very appreciative of that. One of the meaningful collaborations is how to get kids that don't normally have access to the water on the water. Okay, they look at our workforce and say, nobody looks like me. Nobody comes from my background. So we have a really strong collaboration and are meaningful with Asia Pacific Cultural Center, Centro de la Raza, and other agencies that serve underrepresented communities. That meaningful collaboration, next slide, also has a little bit of consideration. In order to expand our reach, we have some obstacles. So, commissioners, we have 2 very old wooden vessels that we've been using successfully, but are 90 years old. And as you know, old wooden vessels have some limitations. Capacity is one. On each vessel, we can only take out 25 students at a time. We're limited by our Coast Guard regulations and size. Staff, we have to have a minimum crew of 5 to 7 just to go underway. During the school day, it's really hard to find that many adult volunteers that can leave their jobs or get time off. So we're hamstrung. When schools call us, we can't always say yes. Tom, I mean, how many times are you cold calling your alumni to have them come down
Weekly.
But most of all, cost. As you can see here, because the vessels are wooden vessels, we require haul outs annually, Coast Guard inspections, and sometimes planks coming out. And yes, that is Tom right in there ironing the wood. They're very, very high maintenance. On our board earlier last year, in 2021, said, what is our strategic direction going to be? Are we going to sink another $1 million into 2 wooden vessels that have limited capacity and limited operation? Or are we going to start a strategic plan for the next generation? Well, they gave me my task and said, Monique, start a strategic plan. And Tom and I and our committee started a strategic plan. 3 to 5 years, we thought we could either find a boat or build one from scratch. Well, next slide. That kind of incubated pretty quickly, because on October 31st, Tom found a boat for sale in Galveston, Texas. And November 3rd, we were on a flight to Galveston, Texas, and said, our 2 to 3 year plan really just got shortchanged if this is true. Currently in Galveston, Texas, there's a boat for sale called the Bay Smart Express. Bay Smart Express is absolutely 98% of what we were looking for. My first question was, why is this for sale? What's wrong with it? Well, Bay Smart Express was a huge project from a very generous philanthropic gentleman in Dallas, Texas, named Mr. Charles Doolin. And he spent the last 15 years researching and rebuilding this vessel to Coast Guard standards. We are going to purchase this vessel and bring a training to Tacoma in our area that nobody has ever seen. This vessel will not only expand our capacity, but it will exponentially speed up our ability to train workforce and to give our youth something they've never had. Next slide. When you look at the classroom space, that classroom seats 46 comfortably in every seat. We have capacity to have more. Every seat has a drop-down airline type of a table where students can take notes, where they can learn. And if you look at the bottom right-hand side, there's actually a smart TV. Whereas all of my students currently are looking on the little screen, that smart TV hooks up to navigation, the pilot house. So while you have students doing real-time navigation, 46 more students are watching and learning. In addition, that smart TV screen can connect to an ROV and a robotic camera dropped off the swim step. So all 46 kids can see with clarity, learn, and follow along what is underneath them on the seabed. And it's closed. We're going to kind of spoil the kids, right? We make them go out. They're actually going to have an enclosed classroom space. Next slide. In addition to the classroom, we also have an O1 deck up top. So we have capacity for an additional 50 to 60 passengers. This vessel is also Coast Guard licensed, subchapter T, for up to 100 passengers. 25 to 100. Now we're talking real youth impact. Next slide, please. As you can see around the deck of the vessel as well, there's seating all the way around the perimeter. Mr. Doolin spent over $12 million remodeling this vessel. I will also send you additionally, kind of as an addendum, because I'm going to be respectful of time, other things with the engines. The engines at 7 years old they have what, like 600, 700 hours on them? I mean, this is really a turnkey vessel. The nonprofit that owns the vessel has met with Tom and I. They've looked at our board and they are absolutely thrilled to have the vessel coming up to Washington State and going to be put to use almost immediately. Purchasing this vessel helps us shorten the time in a turnkey so we can focus on programs and focus on getting underrepresented youth and not have to focus on building a new boat. Next slide. The nuts and bolts of the campaign are that currently we are raising $2.2 million funding request. That includes the vessel purchase, a little bit of modifications. For example, in Galveston, Texas, air conditioning is critical, but not heat. So we got to kind of fix that and maybe add a heater. I'm trying to keep the ice maker on for possible, I don't know, port tours for commissioners and guests, but we'll see. Licensing documentation, but most of all, crew training. We will have to train our crew. We are Coast Guard licensed, so we'll have to spend time and do some of those things. In addition, we have a small 3-year budget as we build revenues for the vessel as well. But I want you to be very, very proud. Next slide. Your community has responded. Most of all, the Ben B. Cheney Foundation responded. And they came to us. They had been working with us through this whole process and said, we not only believe in your workforce development, we've seen it in action. And the Ben B. Cheney Foundation, as our platinum sponsor, has actually funded our entire earnest money amount, I apologize, for $600,000. When you look at the community commitments that we have, Since a December 21st public launch, we are over 1.29 million, over the halfway mark. And that is not even identifying other larger foundations. I want to explain that your community knows how important workforce development is, and your community is investing in maritime workforce development. Over 39% of these investors are Sea Scout alumni. So we just are very proud and hope in the future to be of service to the Port of Tacoma. We want to get the kids out here and take you on quarterly harbor tours. We want to provide you with that base scientific knowledge provided by teenagers to talk about the health. We want them to interact and have confidence in speaking to their commission and having the ability to say, I got to speak to the commissioner about what I did my senior year. And with this vessel, we can do that. Next slide. As we continue to build workforce development, we're going to continue to invest. But I'd love to see if you have any comments, Mr. Tom, or if there are any questions of me, of the commissioners.
Good questions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. I can probably tell you, I suspect there's 5 commissioners in this room. I think that's the total. I'm very supportive of youth programs, very supportive of, I think, where you've taken this program. Congratulations to both of you. Moving from a wooden vessel to this fiberglass or whatever it is.
Aluminum.
It's aluminum. Oh, even better, probably, perhaps. Is a giant step forward, I think, for this program. And I think, Tom, you can relate to that pretty easy, considering what you've done over all these years and the annual pullout to deal with the wooden issues. But I'd like to open up to my fellow commissioners. Just a couple of comments.
I just have a quick comment. You know that we've got a community who really wants a maritime high school, big time. And this is such a big, important part of that. I mean, you've got the dock space, you've got the vessel, you've got the public schools. I've spent a lot of time with people like Sherry Ton and Kathy Lippman, who are trying to spearhead this maritime high school. And I say, guys, here's this vessel that we contracted, and we can have this happen. I know Tacoma Public Schools is really looking very strong for maritime high school. I think John Kellett is one of those who's really, and he's the one who spearheaded the STEM program and SODA and all of that. So this is it. I mean, this is working here.
Not to oversimplify it, but it looks like, it walks like, and it talks like a real commercial vessel that a young person is going to walk off and go to work on. It's very relevant and very tactful. It's just another leap forward. And there is no other training vessel in the Northwest like this.
And you've got showers with stinky teenagers.
Yes.
Showers,
They still have their hot Cheetos.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Thank you for an excellent presentation and the leadership that you both provide to our youth and stuff, and all the dedication and time and volunteers that, you know, we want to make sure we pass that along, because this is just a great program, something to be very proud of. And myself, thank you very much for all that you both do.
Well, thank the sport for the foresight. Well, we started this back in 2007. To invest in it. And at that point in time, we were all, it was a tough time. We had, by 2008, we had the recession. I'm sure everybody wondered what was going to happen, including ourselves.
We went through a lot with the fuel dock thing, just getting that off the ground.
I'm just amazed at how quickly you've been able to move and grab this opportunity. And that just shows a tremendous amount of dexterity in yourselves and the board. Fabulous presentation. And I'm going to be the deliverer this weekend of somebody down in the dock there. So,
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, thank you so much for your work in expanding access to all the middle schoolers in Tacoma. That's fabulous, as well as the efforts to really do some outreach to some communities like the APCC, Central Rasa. So thank you for that. Thank you so much.
We have access to the middle schools and the high schools. That's about 15,000 students. Thanks to Monique's work on that, getting that contract, it took about 5 years to get there. That's a huge step forward, and it opens the door to an awful lot of young people.
And they're also with Maritime Blue, Silverback Marine, other the boating companies that are coming around here, a lot more opportunities for some partnerships.
This is not a four-wall classroom. This is an on-the-water classroom where you can go out and touch and feel. The classroom itself can be on the water, but it has a lot more relevance to some of the scientific classes that we have. You can actually go out to it and feel.
I think that's the unique part of this whole program is the ability to get out on the water. Because being on the water, I tell people all the time, you could drive along Schuster Parkway. But when you get on a vessel and you go out of that waterway that you're on into the bay, you got a whole new experience. And a lot of kids don't have that experience. In fact, speaking to expanding your impact, I think I really like Commissioner Keller's reference to Maritime High School, because one of the things where I live, they don't get to come to the water. They very seldom get to come to downtown Tacoma and really understand what's happening out here. So I hope on expanding your impact, there's a geographic consideration. And I think the Maritime High School piece can pick up that other school districts need to participate in this.
We draw from Enumclaw to Olympia.
Yeah.
It's a huge drawing area. Yeah, the other thing we may not recognize is that looking from the city down in Port of Tacoma, well, it's a big industrial complex. It doesn't necessarily have relevance. Getting them on the water, cruising up the Isle of Oaks or cruising up the Blair Waterway and looking at this vessel next to us that is, oh my God, up there. It takes a whole other relevance of what the port means to the community. Yeah.
So your strategy on filling the gap?
So our strategy on, I'm sorry. Okay, so we actually we've contracted with a professional grant writer. And so we have a budget and we have a strategy for exactly how and where we're going out to solicit the rest of the funds. The biggest thing for us is going to be, also, how should I say this? Shaking up industry. So we've actually made some inroads with Crowley and Saltcheck and saying also, we would like your investments and we'd like your help. So we've kind of gotten through the door, and that was going to be my ask from commissioners and from staff. If there's anyone that you could introduce us to, or you think we should coordinate with, please let us know. We are very agile in your words, Commissioner McCarthy, and I can drive anywhere. So if you think of anything, but we are working with a professional grant writer. So we have a pretty strong strategy. We're closing on the boat on March 31st of 2022, and we anticipate the arrival about June or July. But we have some asks out there, some really strong asks. We also have gotten partnership from the city of Tacoma, not for the purchase, but for the operating capital. So the city of Tacoma, thanks to Councilmember McCarthy's help with, we actually have $276,000 that the city has invested in our launch and our transition budget.
Fantastic. Good news. And yeah, keep in touch.
Yes, we will. And any other details you'd like about the vessel or anything, I definitely can send an addendum link maybe through Judy. But thank you so much for allowing us to thank you and share this great news.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.